We want to turn now to Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, who is in Clemson, South Carolina this morning. Senator, you heard the Energy Secretary. He said this is the best option to prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon.
Well, my view is probably the best deal that Barack Obama could get with the Iranians, because the Iranians don't fear or do they respect him, and our allies in the region don't trust the president. Here's the question for the world. Is there a better deal to be had? I think so. What I would suggest is, if you can't get there with this deal, is to keep the interim deal in place, allow a new president in 2017, Democrat or Republican, to take a crack at the Iranian nuclear program. Obama is a flawed negotiator. His foreign policy has failed on multiple fronts. Nobody in the region trusts him. The Iranians do not fear or respect him, so he'll never be able to get the best deal. The best deal, I think, comes with a new president. Hillary Clinton would do better. I think everybody on our side, except maybe Rand Paul, could do better. So that's one way of looking at this program, keeping the interim deal in place that's been fairly successful, and have a new crack at it with a new president who doesn't have the baggage of Obama.
The president posed a question for his critics like yourself in the Rose Garden. Listen to what he said.
Do you really think that this verifiable deal, if fully implemented, backed by the world's major powers, is a worse option than the risk of another war in the Middle East?
Senator, your response. He said this is the best option out there. If they don't negotiate, if they don't get something, the only other option is a military one.
I don't buy that for 1 minute. It's the best deal he could get, but the question is Barack Obama the best person to deal with the Iranians, given his miserable foreign policy failure? Does anybody really believe the Iranians will take the billions of dollars that we're about to give them and build hospitals and schools? How many centrifuges should a nation have whose military leadership called for the destruction of Israel during the negotiations? How many centrifuges should a nation have who is still the largest sponsor of state terrorism? Does anybody in their right mind believe that Iran's behavior is going to change because you give them more money and more centrifuges to eventually make a bomb? And what will the Arabs do in response to this deal? This deal doesn't dismantle one centrifuge, it doesn't close one site, and I believe there's a better deal. I don't want a war, but at the end of the day, I don't want to give Iran the tools and the capability to continue to destroy the Mideast and one day attack us by building bigger missiles. And until they say they will not destroy the state of Israel, until they stop their provocative behavior, I think we'd be nuts to give them more money and more capability.
Let me ask you about, I know one of the other options, one that you have proposed, is tougher sanctions. But I want to ask you about the efficacy of sanctions. As the New York Times has reported that Iran had about a few hundred working centrifuges in 2003, then thousands when Mr. Obama took over, and now 19,000 centrifuges. So even though we have had the toughest economic sanctions in place, Iran has still funded their nuclear program and advanced it to the 3 to 3 month breakout time. I've talked to people involved in the negotiations, say the whole point of sanctions was to bring the Iranians to the table, that has worked, that this is part of the deal.
I think it has worked. I think the Bush administration, they were a miserable failure when it came to controlling Iran's nuclear ambition. Having them at the table was a result of sanctions that the Congress passed 100 to nothing. If nothing else from this interview, please understand the following. I think Congress will require any deal negotiated with the Iranians to come to the Congress for our review before we lift congressional sanctions. I don't mind giving the administration the time between now and June to put this deal together, because when you listen to the Iranians and Secretary Kerry, it's almost like you're talking to two different deals. So I support the idea of giving them time to put the deal together, but I insist that Congress review the deal, debate and vote on it before it becomes final. Here's what I think we should do. Continue the sanctions under the interim agreement. That's worked pretty well for the world. It has controlled Iran's nuclear ambitions. They get some money, but do not do a final deal until you have the best opportunity to get the best result. Require Iran to change its behavior, stop destroying the Mideast, stop bringing down governments one after another, stop chanting death to America, destroying death to Israel, then when they change their behavior, allow a new president without the baggage of Barack Obama to see if they can negotiate a good deal. This deal, I believe, leads to an Arab breakout. They'll want a nuclear program like the Iranians, and I fear that Israel cannot live with this deal because it gives Iran too much capability and too much money to wreak havoc throughout the region.
All right, Senator Lindsey Graham, nice to have you here. Happy Easter. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.